Welcome back. Did you know other music dropped? That's crazy. So amongst the chaos that has been the past 2 weeks of Kendrick, Drake, J. Cole, Metro Boomin, all the stuff that has been transpiring over it feels like ages, but it's only been like a week. Um, Honestly, I wasn't listening to much else. It definitely overwhelmed me of how much was going on, but um back in April, there was quite a good amount of albums that released. Not as much, I believe, as March, or nothing as substantial as March or the previous months, but there is one that definitely sticks out the most. So I'm going to start off with English Teacher. This Could Be Texas. So I believe this is their debut album, and they are touring with Idols, especially going off after Idols released their album Tank, which is becoming one of my most replayed albums, and it may show up on a top 10 list. But English Teacher, this is their debut album, and if you've listened to Black Country New Road, definitely the dynamics of that band, of how they incorporate these very grandiose and orchestral elements, the elements of horns, the elements of just being very bombastic and also very unpredictable. If you like that kind of style, I think you're really going to like This Could Be Texas from English Teacher. It is a lot more punky and a lot more alt rock. It's very much more straightforward. It's not as kind of discombobulating as Black Country New Road is, but the elements here do definitely carry those similarities. You do get some great moments of catchy moments. You get the moments of insanity. You get the moments of the female vocalist definitely has a little bit of charisma and personality. In particular, I believe the song is called Biscuits, where a lot of it is just spoken word. And the way that it works out amongst kind of the little bit of chaotic energy that that the band gives in contrast with these kind of spoken word vocals, it does create some very harrowing moments. So I highly recommend English Teacher, This Could Be Texas. And we get to Vampire Weekend with Only God Was Above Us. So this album is a major step up from Father of the Bride, which Father of the Bride, while still a pretty good album, it was bloated, and also the direction of it did seem a little bit lost. But on this one here, it reminds me so much of Modern Vampires of the City, where it is a little bit colder, it's a little bit more wintry, and also not to mention, it can get a little insane, the production there too. This definitely reminds me of kind of the more fun moments of Contra and the self-titled album, but it puts it into the context of Modern Vampires of the City, where it does feel a little bit more kind of crisper, kind of colder in its feel. You get some incredible songs on here, and overall, this is just a really fun listen. One of my favorite Vampire Weekend albums. It is such a return to form, and it just shows why Vampire Weekend is one of the best bands of this modern era. Honestly, their discography may be considered untouched, even though there may be some little dim spots in there. So Novo Amor with Collapse List. So this album, like No Place Whatsoever or Cannot Be Whatsoever, this album has grown on me very heavily. And this time around, I have really gravitated towards the lyrics of this thing, particularly where it says the legs go where the brain wants, or something like that, where basically sometimes things don't go the way you want, or life takes you in an entirely different direction than you want it to go. And this album is kind of an exploration of maturity, an exploration of discovering yourself, and an exploration of kind of just the self when it comes to a mental state. And I really appreciate the sound of this album. It does sound very much Novo and more, but you do get these kind of nice interlude moments laced through this thing that just sound absolutely beautiful, and it interludes and segues so perfectly into many of these tracks. And the moments where like strings come through and you just let the instrumentals just play on its own, this album can really hit you emotionally, and I know it did for me listening to it on its own. So highly recommend Nova Me More. I'm gonna have to dig more into the other album that he released a little while ago, because if you're looking for kind of Bonnie Vare, where he was doing the self-titled record, kind of that kind of sound, This is based Novo Amor is basically that, but he's continued on with that sound. I mean, Bon Iver is doing incredible things and incredible experimentation. 22 A Million is one of my favorite records ever. But Novo Amor is kind of staying in that spot of kind of folky singer-songwriter music that definitely hits a chord with me, especially. Now, Shabaka. Perceive its beauty, acknowledge its grace. I did do a video on this one separately, but this album is a 10 out of 10. This is my favorite album of the year. An album like this, I thought to myself, is like, I'm not going to play this continually throughout the year, especially as I was listening to it, but I have gone back to it so many times. The serene nature, the spirituality of it, just the feeling that it gives off, and the just moments of just pure bliss and pure serenity are unmatched this year. And the vocal guests and the features really just add a complimentary piece of this incredible, warm, and also very just transcendent experience when it comes to new age music, when it comes to jazz, when it comes to free jazz, all this stuff. It really just provides some of the best sounding music you will hear this year. Still a 10 out of 10 in my books. And the biggest surprise for me of this month, and I don't know if it was released this month, but I did it before the drop, and the albums that dropped, while they were decent, like the Justice album and the Hard Rock album were decent enough, PND4 actually surprised me quite a bit. And I think a lot of people are discounting this album for just being another R&B, moody, kind of monotone R&B album, but there is actually a strong concept in this album, and it's a concept of basically just finding love, finding maturity in relationships, and maturity in yourself. And P&D kind of explores that throughout the course of this entire album, where you get at the very beginning where he's very free in sexuality and exploring these flings and these one night stands. But as you kind of get through the record, it's kind of going into moments where it's just like, it's time to settle down, or maybe I'm taking things for granted, or maybe I'm taking the women in my life for granted. And then it even goes into a thing of a family aspect where it's just like, I need to consider my family through this as well. And while the ending does still kind of puzzle me of why resentment is at the very end of this record, I do think this album is one of, narratively, PND's strongest albums. And you still get these great vocal moments. The melodies are absolutely untouchable. And the tempos and the beat switches and the beat changes are nice, because I sincerely thought that this album was going to stay one consistent tone the entire time, but you do get a good amount of variation on this record. So that is all the best albums I heard from April of this month. So definitely give all these albums a listen. I will put all of the album links in the description for Spotify. I do have a couple other videos to make. In particular, I think the Kendrick and Drake thing needs to be reassessed, because I think we've reached the point where it may have reached its end. So I'm going to be doing that, and I'm going to be doing a couple more videos throughout the time. So thank you very much for watching, and I will talk to you again very soon.